Well, hi guys and girls, Emma again, welcome back to the spare room. This is sort of a video I wasn't really going to make, but I put some pictures up on Instagram and Facebook and a lot of people were very interested in this, even though I think several other much more qualified people have posted this information recently. But I thought, well, gosh, my bench is dirty. These are actually boiler marks from brazing. I should have had it on the hearth, but I didn't think the heat would transfer quite that much. But anyway, if we all age as gracefully as this workbench, we do pretty well. Now, I've got some brass and I've got some artwork, which I've actually done in Photoshop. I found a font I like and just nice and clear and clean. And I've got another project I've been working on, and I'll give you a bit of a look at this. There will be some more videos out about this, but give you some idea how this is going. It's starting to look pretty good. Still needs a few little finishing touches and a bit of work around the sides, that sort of thing. But it's coming together really nice. What it needs though is a couple of brass plates, and probably I'm going to make a box for it so that it falls in, or it sits in that way around with a lift up lid. And probably I want a plaque on here, or a maker's plate, something like this. This one's probably a fraction too big, but that's what it's going to look like. The beauty of doing this in Photoshop is that you can scale it up and down to fit. So that's probably what we're going to do. So that's just a teaser showing that it's not quite finished, and there will be a video out when I'm getting somewhere closer. So anyway, we'll put this away again. So what are we going to need? We're going to need some brass. And this is probably, it's pretty thin stuff. It doesn't need to be very thick. I guess if you put a micrometer on it, it's probably, it might be 15 thou thick. It's pretty flexible. And we need some artwork, but the artwork's got to be mirror imaged for this to work, and you need a laser printer or a photocopier. I'm going to use this, which is press and peel PCB film. This is good stuff. I've had really good results with this. You might have to do a few before you get there. I certainly did, but lately it's coming up pretty good. I've got some ammonium persulfate, which is a white crystal. I'm going to use that for etching. It seems to be pretty good stuff, and it's a bit less noxious than ferric chloride, which is black and awful. First thing will be to just make sure these actually fit on the surface plate. And I say that because I've done another one and it's a bit big, so that'll go on the box. But more about that soon. So this I think worked out to be about 23mm by about 85. So what we need to do, get our trusty Randy Richard scribe and mark off a 23mm wide piece. Might just go 24 in case we don't get it quite square or whatever. Scribe a line down there. Double check that length, it's 85mm. And give that a couple of extra mil too. And cut it out with a pair of tin snips. This pair of snips I bought at a market for $18 at a flea market. They're fantastic, really. I don't think they're whisk, they've got a footprint on them. But beautiful pair of snips for this sort of work. Didn't look at the back of this, or I might have cut it out of somewhere else, but we'll have to peel that off yet. Guess this wants to be somewhere near flat. It's probably not a huge deal to get it flat. Probably the easiest way is just to clamp it between two bits of metal in the vise. So I might do that. No, it's not bad. Next job will be get some piece of 400 wet and dry and give this a good clean up. What we're looking for is a fairly well polished surface. The other side's a bit rough, so I might give it a rub on the 400 just to take the burrs and things off it, just so it sits nice and flat for the iron. Now this has got a burr along here, I don't know if you can see that. Not going to do you any favours when you go to iron it up, I've decided. So I might get in with a file. Take that off there. All the way around. And that's just the tin snips left out there. Nothing serious. Probably using a bit thicker brass stock would alleviate most of these problems, and something new rather than something that I've had kicking around here for 5 years in the bottom of the scrap drawer. So we've got a pretty good start there. So the next job with this is to go and get a nice clean bit of cloth or some gloves and give this a scrub with some, probably first some degreaser and then some washing up detergent and so hot soapy water, and get it nice and clean and ready to go. So that's the next job. So there we go, no fingerprints on that, nice and clean. Next job will be to print the artwork, and just to use the laser printer. This prints on the dull side. It's got two sides, it's got a dull side and it's got a shiny side, you see that? So we print on the dull side, and there's still plenty enough in here for a few more projects, so I'm just going to organise it on the sheet and run this through the printer and come back. You've got to print on the dull side and you've got to have your artwork as a mirror image. So next job here is to cut this out carefully. I just cut that along nice and straight and put that back in the bag and use it again. And that's our artwork ready to go. So that's as simple as that. Put that on there. And a nice clean sheet of paper over the top of it. And we're forgetting something. We need to wait for this to warm up. In this day and age, not everyone's got one of these. This has been in the shed, in the laundry for 6 months. It needs a good clean, and it's probably 2 years since I've used it for anything except making nameplates. So everyone now either spin dries their clothes or hangs them up, or unless you work in an office and wear a white shirt, you never ever use one. So you might have to have a bit of a look to find that. So we'll give it a minute. This brass needs to be the same temperature as the iron when we're done, so it's going to take 4 or 5 minutes to iron this on so that it's up to speed, and it's going to be a nice job. So we might wait until that warms up now. So we'll double check that this is lined up and it's not over the edge anywhere. We don't want to use a steam iron. And the problem with this iron is that if you leave it for too many minutes, it beeps it at you and tells you that you need to stand it up or turn it off. Now, Tom Utley's just done he's doing up a South Bend lathe. If you have a look for him on the web, you'll find him all over. He said that the best way is to heat these sheets up in an oven to the right temperature and then run them out with a rubber roller. And probably he's spot on. I think that's probably really good. But this is the way I'm doing it. Have a look. That should be up to temperature. Next thing to do is to peel this off. It shouldn't be stuck down, but probably it's got a burr on it still there that's stuck in the bench. Take it over the tap, run it under cold water and peel that off, and come back and we'll have a bit of a look. So without getting any fingerprints on it, this is what we ended up with. We've got that, and this is the piece that's almost perfect. There's a couple of places here where it hasn't stuck around the edge, and that's because our sheet of brass wasn't quite flat. Probably what I'm going to do is just get a fine Sharpie, give that a couple of coats. It's not quite come to the edge, and that's ready to etch. We don't put any fingerprints or anything on it. We'll put our iron away somewhere to cool off. I've got some hot water. The instructions on this stuff says to keep it above 70 degrees for it to work properly, and it says to mix it 5 to 1. I was always taught a saturated solution, but maybe that's too much information for 2017. So either way, I'm going to put that in there, and about 10 minutes we'll start to see the surface lift nearly straight away there. Might zoom in on that. Have a look there now. We can really start to see that look pretty 3D. I'm going to give it a few more minutes. Not for any particular reason, but that's how long I gave the other one. And we'll fish him out. Now I'm going to call that done. We'll just fish him out of there. Can have a bit of a look at that. You find that some of the letters get finer than others, so the only real way to work this out is to give this a scrub. Just get a Scotch-Brite and take all this off under the tap. I'll do that and I'll come back. Just had a thought, and before I go too much further, what I'm going to do is find a hammer and a centre punch and mark these. And drill them. So a bit of elbow grease later, this is what we've got. So next job, before I go to bed for the night, is to give these one final scrub up and put some paint on them. And in the morning when the paint's dry, we'll give them a clean up and see how they look on the job. So after a fair bit of work, this is sort of what I got. They're not too shabby. I'll just put top coat on there, and I think the paint's probably bled a little bit through there, so whether when they're dry I might give them another buff back and then another coat of top coat, I'm not sure. But there's a fair bit of work in that, and there's quite a lot I've learnt along the way. So I'm going to, when we're done, if you hang on to the end, I'm going to do a bit of a rundown of times and things like that that might be important. There's some tips that I've learnt, and it is a fairly steep learning curve. This one's for the plate, and this is probably going to get rubbed back in another coat too, because I just put a fingerprint on that. But they're not too shabby, and I'm really pleased with them. So let's have a look at it. So sort of what it's going to look like. I'm pretty pleased with that. The job here will be to mark the holes and to drill them. This is going to require a little bit of messing around to get it right. And I've got a box of U-type drive screws, which have got a spline on them, and they go in a tight hole and just bash in and they don't come out. So they took a bit of finding, but I've got heaps of them now. So the job for the rest of the day, I think, while they dry properly, is to clean up these edges and drill some holes, mount that on, and we should be getting close to done. So next job really is to attach this, and it wants to be nicely in the middle. I'm just basically going to measure it with a steel ruler. That's pretty nice and square, and scribe around him. Got 2 holes marked. Here we go, and we're going to drill these for the 2.5mm or a fraction bigger. Hole in here and a hole in here. They only need to be about 5-6mm deep, so there's quite a bit of draft on this pattern, and if I put them in straight, they're gonna have a gap under them. They're gonna look really ugly. So the answer will be to tip this over, and probably the best way is just to measure this draft, and all I'm going to use is a protractor, and this sits fairly solid here, and I think I'll be able to hold it against an angle plate. So what I'm going to do is clamp this up on an angle plate with a block of wood, and then tilt my table on the drill press across so that that's on exactly the right angle, and just drop a hole in each side. Find the angle plate and make sure there's no burrs or anything on it. A sheet of paper so it doesn't get scratched up, and a little timber offcut. So what have I learnt? A couple of things, or quite a lot actually. Firstly, that this is a much deeper etch than I first expected. So this took 30 minutes, 40 minutes probably to etch deep enough so that I could sand the top off without disturbing the paint. That's the first thing. Second thing is, don't put too much heat for too long onto your plate, because your line will bleed. Third thing is that you're going to have to make a few of them before you get one right. And just looking here, this is some of them. This one's not deep enough. This one's probably nearly deep enough, but it had a bend in the end, so the background's come through. This one's not deep enough, so there's probably another 4 or 5 that I did. It's been a couple of weeks to do these. The other thing is that I'm not putting lacquer on these. I originally thought I would, but I'm not going to because it's just too difficult. to get them to look nice. So they're just plain polished brass and they're going to be plenty good enough. So they're the main things that I've learnt from this. It's been quite a job. It's taken me best part of 10 days, 2 weeks, working most nights to get these up and running to that level. Onwards and upwards. There's still lots of jobs to do on this surface plate before you get a video on that, but that's just a teaser. I want to say thanks for watching. Thanks to all my new subscribers. Don't forget to like and subscribe, all that sort of stuff. It gives me a bit of incentive to get in and make some more videos. It's been a while since the last one because work's been crazy and I haven't been spending any money, and this has taken a lot longer than I thought, this particular little job. So here's the video on this anyway. Thanks for watching, and be kind to each other, and more soon, guys and girls.